Hello children, welcome to Time. Today I am going to discuss about the exercise part of the chapter metals and non-metals. So you have already learned the basics of it, the comparative study of physical properties of metals and non-metals. Now let us look at the exercise part. Let me start with the test your basics. Here is your first question. The non-metal which is generally present in most of the alloys is? Simple question, and the answer is carbon, because this is the non-metal which you can see in most of the alloys, right? Next question is, dash is used for aiding breathing in patients with respiratory problems. Yes. So the carbogen, okay, medical oxygen we call it as, because carbogen is not pure oxygen. It is a mixture of 95% oxygen and 5% carbon dioxide. Okay, this is a range from 95 to 98% oxygen will be there, whereas carbon dioxide will be from 2 to 5%. Okay, right? So carbogen is known as a medical oxygen. Fine. Next question. The process of addition of sulfur to natural rubber to make it hard is known as? Yes, it is known as vulcanization. Okay, vulcanization. When sulfur is added to it, rubber contains in its structure double bonds. Wherever there are double bonds, sulfur gets added up over there. So because of this, extra like hardness will be imparted to the rubber, right? So which is, and this process is known as vulcanization, because natural rubber doesn't find that application to you, but vulcanized rubber has much applications. That's why rubber is subjected to vulcanization, right? Now next question. Dash is a liquid non-metal. Again a simple question which you learnt it in the exceptions, right? Generally non-metals are gases, but some of the non-metals are solids as well as liquids, and in that bromine is the one which is in the bromine, isn't it? This is the one which exists in the liquid state under normal conditions of temperature and pressure. Right. Next question. Dash and dash metals are poor conductors of electricity. Okay. Generally, metals are good conductors of electricity, but there are exceptions. So, which are the metals that are poor conductors of electricity? Lead and bismuth. So, symbol for lead is Pb and symbol for bismuth is Bi. Okay, lead and bismuth. These are the metals that are poor conductors of electricity. Right. Next question. Dash is having a non-metal. Here, what is asked in the question is non-metal having exceptionally high tensile strength. Generally, non-metals do not have tensile strength, but carbon is such a non-metal that exhibits high tensile strength. Okay, so the answer is carbon. Right. Now, next question. So, non-metal oxides react with water to give. See, CO2 is a non-metal oxide, right? So, if you take sulfur dioxide is a non-metal oxide. So, these when they are dissolved in water, you can see the formation of carbonic acid, isn't it? So, if this is dissolved in water, I am not writing the balanced equation. So, sulfur dioxide plus water, it gives sulfurous acid. Okay, H2SO3. Sulfur trioxide reacts with water to form sulfuric acid. So, non-metal oxides generally when reacts with water forms acids. Okay, this is an important question. There are some of the non-metal oxides which you have learned that as a neutral because they do not react with water. Carbon monoxide, nitric oxide and nitrous oxide. Remember, right? Now next question is, steam renders aluminium passive due to the formation of. So when aluminium reacts with steam, then it forms oxide of aluminium of the formula Al2O3, and then hydrogen will be produced. So if you balance it, yes, this is the balanced chemical equation. this is formed. This is known as alumina. Right. So because of the formation of Al2O3 oxide, this oxide covers the surface of the aluminium and then forms a very protective layer, thereby rendering this aluminium passive. Okay, so aluminium is rendered passive when it reacts with steam is due to the formation of alumina, Al2O3 or aluminium oxide. Right? Next question. When chlorine is passed through water, dash and dash acids are formed. Okay, this is again an important question. Chlorine, when water is treated with chlorine, it forms hydrochloric acid plus an unstable hypochlorous acid. This is hypochlorous acid. This being unstable, again dissociates to form HCl plus nascent oxygen. This nascent oxygen is what is responsible in the disinfection of the water. Right. So, what is formed? These two. Hydrochloric acid and then hypochlorous acid. I am just writing the formula of that. I am not writing the names. Hypochlorous acid. Right? Fine. Now, next question. 10th question. Here, you are supposed to select the correct alternative from the given choices. So, the question is, which of the following is not a constituent of tincture of iodine? Okay. See, tincture solutions are characterized by the presence of alcohol. So, for sure, alcohol should be there. And tincture of iodine, here iodine is there. So, along with the elemental iodine, the sodium or potassium salt of iodine will also be there in it. Okay. So, how is tincture of iodine is prepared is, so iodine, elemental iodine along with the sodium or potassium salt of iodine are added into the mixture of alcohol and water. So it contains elemental iodine, sodium or potassium salt of the iodine, alcohol and water. But it does not contain potassium permanganate. So this is the constituent which is not present in the tincture of the iodine. Whereas this will be there and this will be there. Right? So answer 3 follows. Clear? Fine. Next question. Identify the gas used for the combustion of rocket fuel in liquid form. Okay, let us look at the options what are given. Fine. Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide and helium. See, if you look at the options, it's like odd man out. Nitrogen and then carbon dioxide cannot be used. This is not the supporter of the combustion. Right. And then helium, which is inert in nature. So, it's obviously the oxygen. And you have also learnt in the basics that oxygen in its liquid form and also hydrogen in its liquid form can be used as rocket fuels. Right. So, answer is 1. Next question. Copper is not the major component in which of the following alloys? Okay. Fine. See, gunmetal is a variant of just bronze. So, gunmetal contains again copper plus tin. Okay. And even bell metal also contains copper plus tin. But the difference between these two is, here the copper will be around 80%, tin will be around 12%, okay, and the remaining will be like other elements, like zinc, okay, 2 to 3%, zinc will also be there in it. So, whereas here, tin will be about 22 to 24%. The difference lies over here. So, the percentage of tin will be high in case of the bell metal. And then German silver. German silver is the alloy of copper and nickel. Right? And again, copper is the major component because it will be around 60 to 65%. In monal metal, it is an alloy of nickel and copper, where nickel is the major percentage. It is around 60 to 65%, whereas copper will be around 30%. Along with this, you can see other elements. But the major component here is nickel. But what is asked in the question? Copper is not the major component in which of the following alloys? So, here copper is not the major component in monal metal. So, answer 4 follows. Clear? Fine. Next question. The mixture of gases that is used as an anesthetic is, what's the meaning of anesthetic? Imparting sedation. Okay. So nitrous oxide, the mixture of nitrous oxide and oxygen is used for surgical sedation. So oxygen plus carbon dioxide not, hydrogen plus nitrogen no, carbon dioxide plus nitrogen no. So it is the mixture of nitrous oxide and oxygen which is used for the medical surgical purposes to impart sedation. Right. So this mixture is used for imparting anesthesia. Right. So answer 3 follows. Next question. Which metal cannot be beaten into sheets? The property of the metals that can be beaten into sheets is known as malleability, isn't it? Malleability. Now you need to identify from the options which metal is not malleable. So lead, titanium, platinum, all are malleable in nature. Zinc is not malleable. Okay, you have learned this in the exception, isn't it? So generally metals are malleable and ductile. The exception is zinc. Right? So choice 3 follows. Next question. Identify the element which is not a metal light. Okay. What are the options given? Germanium, titanium, selenium, and then antimony. What all you have learned in the, what is a metal light? An element that shows the properties of metals as well as non-metals, okay, are known as metal lights. All these you learnt as metal lights. But here titanium is there, which is not a metal light. You are asked to identify which is not a metal light. So choice 2 follows. Next question. Graphite possesses some properties of the metals even though it is a non-metal. Okay. Identify the metallic property which is not exhibited by a graphite. So what are those? Electrical conductivity, luster, high melting point, and then thermal conductivity. You have seen that graphite is an allotropic form of carbon that is lustrous. So this will be exhibited. Metals possess luster. That property will also be exhibited by the non-metal graphite. What is that? It is asked in the question. Identify the metallic property which is not exhibited. Luster is exhibited. And then it is a good electrical conductor. That's why graphite electrodes are used, right? It has high melting point. Like metals have high melting point. So even the graphite, though it is a non-metal, it possesses high melting point. But it's not a good thermal conductor. So metals are usually good thermal and electrical conductors, isn't it? But graphite, though possesses all these properties, but it does not possess this property which is possessed by metals. That is what is asked in the question. So choice 4 follows, right? So this is the answer, right? Next question. So 17th question. This is of match the following type. Entries are given in column A as well as in column B. More entries are given in column B, but whichever are correct, you are supposed to match up with, right? So what are given under column A? Let us read out. Magnesium for fireworks, and then copper for electrical cables, silver for making ornaments, nitrogen as preservative, silicon in transistors, right? What are given under column B? Inert nature, semiconductor property, burns with dazzling white flame, good electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, high malleability, and luster. Okay. Now, magnesium for fireworks. Why do we use magnesium in fireworks? Is because it burns with dazzling white flame. So C should be the correct match for this. So let me write here. Copper for electrical cables. Why do we prefer copper for electrical cables? Is because of its good electrical conductivity, right? So D. Then coming to silver for making ornaments. Obviously it is because of high malleability and luster, right? So F. Nitrogen as preservative. Always nitrogen is used as a preservative because it is inert in nature. So silicon in transistors. Silicon is used as a semiconductor because of its semiconducting properties. So B. So C, D, F, B, A will be the correct answer for this. Match the following, right? For A, C, for B, D, for C, F, for D, A, and then for E. Next question. Here it is. So again, match the type, match the following type. So what is given under column A is a reaction between an element with water or steam. And then under column B, nature of the product obtained or the observation when these elements react with water or steam. What are those given? Red hot coke. When reaction between an element with water and steam. Okay. When red hot coke is allowed to, when steam is passed through red hot coke, okay, then you get carbon monoxide plus hydrogen, right? And this mixture is known as water gas, right? So carbon monoxide and H2. This is a gas, this is a gas. So mixture of two gases, which is used as a good fuel, right? So this is used as a water gas, which is a good fuel. So F is the correct match for it. Now, aluminium. Aluminium when reacts with water, we have even seen in the fill in the blanks questions. Aluminium when reacts with water forms a stable protective coating of aluminium oxide. See, protective layer. It forms Al2O3 which sticks onto the surface of aluminium, rendering the further aluminium passive, because aluminium will not come into contact with the environment because of the coating of the aluminium oxide formed, right? So for B, E is the correct match. Now coming to iron, a mixed oxide. Iron when reacts with steam, it forms Fe3O4, mixed oxide, ferrosoferric oxide. This is an important question, right? So mixed oxide. So A is the correct match for it, right? Fe plus 2 as well as Fe plus 3 oxides can be seen in this. That's why it's known as mixed oxide. Potassium. When potassium reacts with steam or water, it reacts very vigorously, right? And the reaction is so vigorous and exothermic in nature that the heat that is produced makes potassium to react with oxygen and burn with Liliac flame. Okay. Potassium is lighter than that of water, right? So because of which it floats, and then when it catches fire with oxygen, it burns with Liliac flame, right? So C is the correct match for it. And then magnesium. Magnesium, white ash of an oxide. That's why it is used in fireworks. Just now we have seen. So B. And then sodium. Sodium burns with golden yellow flame, right? Even the reaction is also vigorous. Right. Potassium with Liliac flame, whereas sodium with golden yellow flame. So this is the correct match. F, E, A, C, B, D. Right? Fine. Next question. 19th question. The entries in column A, reaction of water or steam with these elements, and what is given under column B is observation. What happens when these elements react with water or steam? What do you observe? Okay. Now sodium. You know sodium and potassium reaction with even moisture, isn't it? They react because of their high reactivity, even with the moisture. And the reaction is so violent, right? So violent will be the matching for this. Now coming to calcium. Calcium reacts with cold water also, and it bubbles out vigorously. So because of which this reaction with water is known as Britsky reaction. So A is the correct match for it, right? And it forms, when it reacts with water, it forms calcium hydroxide plus hydrogen, right? And iron. Iron when reacts with water, the reaction is reversible. Okay. So it reacts with steam. It do not react with water, but iron when reacts with steam, it forms mixed oxide, ferrosoferric oxide, okay, along with hydrogen. So and the reaction is reversible in nature. So E is the correct match for it. Now coming to aluminium. Aluminium reacts with steam and form Al2O3. Okay. So which is a protective layer formation. So C is the correct match for it. Now coming to magnesium. Magnesium burns brilliantly. This you all know, right? So B, A, E, C, D is the correct match for this question, right? So this is all about your test your basics questions. Right. Hope it's clear. Right. So this is all about your test your basics questions. Now let's move ahead and look at the knowledge based questions, right? Fine. So we are done with your test your basics. Now let us look at the knowledge based questions. Here is your first question. Distinguish between metals and non-metals with respect to the following characteristics. What are those characteristics? Tensile strength and physical strength. See, generally, metals have high tensile strength, whereas non-metals have low tensile strength. And coming to physical state, metals are generally solid in nature, with exception, right? But generally they are solids in nature, but whereas non-metals are gaseous in nature. But some of the non-metals you can see in the liquid as well as in the solid state. Exceptions are there, but the general thing, right? So tensile strength, metals have high tensile strength, while non-metals have low tensile strength. Coming to the physical state, metals are generally solids, while most of the non-metals are gases and very few are solids. Next question. Mention the properties of aluminium exploited in its usage for the following purposes. Okay, for cooking utensils and for wrapping up of food items. Right. So, why it is used in the cooking utensils? Just one thing is it has luster, and another thing is it is a good thermal conductor. Okay, and because of the formation of the protective layer coating on its surface, the durability of the utensils will be high because the main aluminium material will not get corroded because of the formation of the protective layer coating of aluminium oxide on its surface. Right. So these are the formation of protective layer. Right. These are the properties which helps it to that are exploited for its usage in making up of the cooking utensils. Coming to for wrapping up of the food items, it is highly malleable in nature, and also it can form a protective layer coating. Right. These are the properties that are exploited in making up of the wrappers for wrapping up of food items. Right. So here is the answer. You can see. So you can make a note of it. Right. So form high malleability and the formation of protective layer of oxide on the surface of the metal. Luster, good thermal conductivity and durability. Fine. Next question. What are metalloids? List out the metalloids. Fine. So here you can see the answer. I've already written. Metalloids are nothing but the elements that have some properties of metals and some properties of the non-metals. And the examples are germanium, selenium, tellurium, arsenic and antimony. So these are the elements which you have learned as metalloids. Right. Fine. Next question. Why is titanium most suitable for making knee implants? Because titanium is such an element that do not react with body fluids. That is the property which makes it to be suitable for making knee implants also. Right. So here is the answer. Most suitable for making knee implants because it does not react with the body fluids. Right. Next question. How do metals and non-metals differ with respect to the reaction with water? So you have learnt about metal reactivity series. Those metals that are there above hydrogen react with water or steam to liberate hydrogen. Okay. Whereas those metals that are there below hydrogen do not react with water. While non-metals, they do not react at all. Right. So here you have learnt about sodium and potassium. They even react with moisture. Right. So metals will react with very highly reactive metals react with moisture. And then some metals react with cold water and then hot water. Some metals react with only steam. It all depends upon the reactivity, right? And reactivity decreases down the metal reactivity series, right? Fine. So this is what is the answer for this question. So non-metals usually do not react with water, right? Next question. Define elements. How are they classified on the basis of valence electrons? Right. So how do you define elements as? Elements are the pure substances, molecules of which are made up of the same kind of atoms. Right. And these elements, based upon their valence electrons, are classified into metals and non-metals. Right. If the atoms of those elements possess the valence electrons from 1 to 3, then those elements are categorized under the head metals. Okay. And those elements which possess valence electrons from 4 to 7 are categorized under the head non-metals. Right. So this is the classification of the elements based upon the valence electrons possessed in their atoms. Fine. Next question. So define the following. So what are given here? malleability, ductility, and then tensile strength. So how did we define malleability in the basics as? The ability of the material because of which it can be beaten in the form of sheets. It is known as malleability. And the ability of the material because of which it can be drawn in the form of thin wires is known as ductility. And the ability of the material which helps it to withstand over the external force is known as its tensile strength. Right. External force, or we can call it as stress. Right. So this is the way we define these properties. Here you can see malleability is the ability of the material to be beaten into sheets, while ductility is the ability of the material to be drawn in the form of wires, and tensile strength is the ability of the material to withstand stress or applied force. Fine. Next question. Name two metals which react with moisture. You know that sodium and potassium react with moisture, right? So write one moisture catalyzed synthesis reaction. It's hydrogen and oxygen, they combine in the presence of moisture to form water. Right. Here moisture acts as a catalyst. So here 2H2 gives rise to 2H2. Right. So this is the answer for this. This is the reaction in which moisture is acting as a catalyst, and this is a synthesis reaction. Two elements are combining to form one product. Right. This is all about your knowledge based questions. Hope it's clear to you. Fine. Now let's move ahead and talk about understanding based questions. Fine. Now let's look at UBQs. Your first question is, why does copper get tarnished on exposure to atmosphere? Right. See, copper, when it is exposed to atmospheric air, okay, atmospheric air contains oxygen, carbon dioxide, moisture, isn't it? So it reacts with carbon dioxide in the presence of the moisture, right, to form copper hydroxycarbonate, the formula of which is Cu2OH2CO3. So this is basic in nature. Because of the formation of this copper hydroxycarbonate, which is green color, you can see a green colored patch onto the copper. This is actually a corrosion reaction, right? So because of the formation of this, copper gets tarnished on exposure to atmosphere. Fine. Next question. What is the role of nitrogen in the atmospheric air for sustaining life on the Earth? Well, you know that atmospheric air is a mixture of different gases. And the major proportions of the gases by volume are, I am writing the approximate values, about 78% of nitrogen and 21% of oxygen. Right? And oxygen, you know, is a supporter of combustion and is very essential for the life to exist onto the Earth. Right? It's a respiratory gas. Now the question is, what is the role of nitrogen in the atmospheric air for sustaining life on the Earth? You know about oxygen. But what is the role of nitrogen is being asked. See, nitrogen is inert in nature. Because of its inert character, it has the ability to dilute the combustion activity of the oxygen and render it to the moderate level. Suppose if nitrogen is not there in the atmosphere, let us say, then the metabolic activities that takes place in the living organisms will be at such a high rate that the enormous amount of the heat energy that is released due to these metabolic activities cannot be tolerated by the living organism's tissues in the absence of nitrogen. Suppose if nitrogen is there, then it can dilute up that activity of the combustion of oxygen and helps the life to sustain on the Earth. That's what is the role of nitrogen. Right? Fine. Next question. Name the metals which catch fire when dropped in water. Give reasons. See, you know that the metals like potassium and sodium, which are highly active, can also react with moisture. So when these are dropped in water, they are light in weight. They have less density than that of water. Right. So because of their less density, when they are dropped in water, what happens is they start floating. And the reaction of these metals with moisture is a highly exothermic reaction. The meaning of which is, when the reaction takes place, enormous amount of the heat energy will be released, right? And these metals being light in weight as they float, and as the reaction with moisture is exothermic. The heat energy that is released helps this metal to react with oxygen which is there in the atmosphere. Because now the metal is in contact with the atmospheric oxygen, isn't it? Because it is floating onto the water. Right. So because of this enormous amount of the heat energy that is released, this metal catches fire as it reaches its ignition temperature. Right? So the metals are nothing but sodium and potassium. Right? So they are light in weight as well as the reactions are exothermic in nature. Because of these two reasons, they catch fire when they are dropped in water. Next question. Which metal is the best conductor of electricity? Why is it not used in the electrical transmission cables and in the electrical wiring in buildings? Which metals are used for the above purposes? Right. So, in the order of the conductivity, we can write the metals as silver, which is the best conductor of electricity. Next to this is copper, and then is gold, and then is aluminum. But you know that silver and gold are very costly metals, is it? So they are expensive, so they cannot be used. Right. And among all these, silver is the best conductor of electricity. But still it is not used because it is expensive in nature. Now coming to the next metal, it is copper. Copper is used in the electrical wirings in buildings. Right. In electrical wirings, we use copper. Now coming to electrical transmission cables, we use aluminium because aluminium is less expensive when compared to that of the copper. Right. So as aluminium is more cost effective when compared to that of the copper, aluminium is used in the electrical transmission cables while copper is used in the electrical wirings in the buildings. Right? Fine. Next question. Water contains oxygen and hydrogen. Does it possess the properties of both these elements? Obviously not. Let us see. Hydrogen and oxygen combines chemically with each other to form a new compound, that is water. This is a new compound. So this is a chemical change, right? And the compound that is formed cannot have the properties same as the properties of the substances from which it is formed. Because this is a compound, an entirely new compound, and it has its own set of characteristic properties. Hydrogen and oxygen have their own characteristic properties, while water has its own. Right. So here, if you balance this equation, this comes out to be like this. So by volume, 2 parts of hydrogen combines with 1 part of oxygen to form 2 parts of water. So hydrogen and oxygen combine in 2:1 ratio by volume. Right. And in no way the properties of water will be having the similarities with the properties of hydrogen and oxygen. Right. Clear? Fine. So this is all about the questions under understanding based. Now let us talk about application based questions. Right? Fine. So now let's look at your application based questions. And the first question is, when chlorine gas is passed through water, it acts as a disinfectant, but it renders the water acidic due to reason. So you have also seen this in the fill in the blanks questions, isn't it? So what are the products formed when chlorine is added to water? Here, when chlorine is added to water, what happens is, it forms HCl and hypochlorous acid. And hypochlorous acid is unstable in nature, so again gets dissociated to form HCl plus nascent oxygen. This is the nascent oxygen or the atomic oxygen which is responsible for the disinfection action. Right. Now because of the formation of this HCl, hydrochloric acid, water is rendered acidic. That's what is the reason. Right. So because of the formation of hydrochloric acid, water is rendered acidic. Fine. Next question. When steam is passed over a non-metal, 2 gases of equal volumes are formed. So option A, identify the gases. What is the mixture of 2 gases obtained called? Write 2 important uses of the above mixture and state the reason for using that mixture for above purposes. Okay, let us see. See, when steam is passed over red hot coke, okay, so what happens is, we get carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Both are gases, right? So this is a mixture of the 2 gases which are obtained in 1:1 ratio. So identify the gases. The answer is carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Right. So for option A equation, the answer is carbon monoxide and H2. Now, what is the mixture of two gases obtained called? The mixture of these two gases is known as water gas. Right. Now, write two important uses of the above mixture. See, water gas can be used as a fuel. Okay. And another one is it is used as a good reducing agent. Reducing agent. What is reducing agent? The one which undergoes oxidation easily is known as a reducing agent. Right. Now, these are the two important uses of this above mixture. State the reason for using that mixture for the above purposes. Okay. So, what is the reason for it to be used as a fuel and what is the reason for it to be used as a good reducing agent? See here, carbon monoxide as well as hydrogen, they release enormous amount of the heat energy when react with oxygen. Right. So, that is why it is a good fuel. Fine. And then coming to reducing agent, hydrogen is a good reducing agent, no doubt about that. And even carbon monoxide can get easily converted to carbon dioxide on oxidation. Right. So, very quickly gets oxidized to carbon dioxide. Hence, it is a good reducing agent. So, that are the reasons for using that mixture for these purposes. Right. So, this is the answer for this question. Now, let us look at the next question. An article made up of aluminium loses its luster when kept in the environment of steam, but does not undergo further corrosion. State the reason. This I have already given the explanation both in the fill in the blanks as well as in the multiple choice questions. Right. See, aluminium when reacts with steam, okay, it forms Al2O3, which we call it as alumina, plus hydrogen. Have written the skeletal equation. I am not writing the balanced equation. Right. So here, this aluminium oxide which is formed, it's strongly adherent to that aluminium metal, thus rendering this aluminium metal further passive. Right. So, because of the formation of this and then adhering it onto the surface of aluminium, aluminium loses its luster. Right. We also call it as aluminium as a self-protective metal because of this reason. Clear? And this is highly chemical resistant. Right. So, these are the questions under application based. Now, let us look at the practice based questions. Fine. Now, let's discuss about practice based questions. So, here is your first question. Gold and platinum are called noble metals. Give reason. Fine. See, metals react with atmospheric gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide or moisture under some other conditions to form new products. Fine. But gold and platinum are such metals which do not react with any of the atmospheric gases, neither of the moisture, okay, under any conditions. Because of this reason, these are considered as noble metals. Right? So, next question. Copper in copper oxide does not liberate sulfur dioxide gas, while copper in bronze evolves sulfur dioxide gas with concentrated H2SO4. Okay, if you write the formula of copper oxide, it is CuO, whereas if you write bronze, it is a mixture of copper and tin. Right? So, this is a mixture, whereas this is a compound. And you have learned that in compounds, let me write here compound, and this is a mixture. Right. In compounds, elements do not retain their chemical properties. Okay. And whereas in mixtures, elements do retain their chemical properties. Fine. So, because of this reason, here copper oxide does not liberate sulfur dioxide gas when it is treated with sulfuric acid, concentrated sulfuric acid, right? Whereas here, copper, when it is treated with concentrated sulfuric acid, it can liberate sulfur dioxide gas because it retains its chemical properties, right? Now, let us look at the next part of the question. However, for making statues, copper is used in the form of bronze, but not metallic copper. See, for making statues, the material should be a little bit harder. No doubt copper is highly malleable in nature, which is essential to make the statues, but it needs even hardness also, which it gets imparted by alloying it with the tin. So copper alone do not be that hard compared to that of the bronze, right? So to impart that extra hardness, copper is alloyed with tin, right? So because of this reason, bronze is preferred in making the statues but not the metallic copper, right? And explain why the same copper has such varied properties. Yes, so if we talk about the physical and chemical properties, okay, in case of compounds, elements neither after getting converted to compound, which is a new product after a chemical change, it neither retain its physical nor its chemical properties. But elements in their mixtures can retain their chemical properties if not the physical properties, right? So they do not retain their physical properties but they retain chemical properties, right? So this is the reason. Fine. Hope it's clear. Next question. Name a metal the reaction of which with steam is a reversible reaction. What are the products formed and how can we make the reaction irreversible? Fine. So you have learnt in the basics that iron, when it reacts with steam, I am writing only the skeletal equations, it forms mixed oxide of iron, ferroferric oxide, because you can see both the formation of the oxides, Fe2 oxide plus Fe3 oxide, because of which this is known as ferroferric oxide or mixed oxide, plus hydrogen. So it liberates hydrogen, right? And here, if this reaction is carried out in a closed container, okay, then the reaction is reversible. And the symbol for reversible reaction is this. So name a metal the reaction of which with steam is reversible reaction is, the answer is iron, right? Now what are the products formed? Ferroferric oxide and hydrogen are the products formed. How can we make the reaction irreversible? Yes, if you carry out this reaction in an open container, okay, then the reaction will be irreversible. Then you can write the reaction, you can show it as like this, right, with a single headed arrow mark. If it is reversible, arrow marks half headed, two sides, reversible reaction, right? Fine. So these are the products that are formed and this is how we can make the reaction irreversible. Next question. So fourth question. A piece of red litmus paper is dipped into the beaker, kept in a beaker A and B. Let us take beaker first. Let me draw. This is beaker A and then this is beaker B, right? Now what is taken in beaker A? In beaker A, some amount of calcium oxide is taken, fine. And then in beaker B, sulfur dioxide was passed through, right? Now what is dipped here? A piece of red litmus paper. This is red litmus paper, right? So here also red litmus paper, here also red litmus paper, fine. Now write the observations made in both the cases, fine. See, you have learned that acids convert blue litmus paper red, whereas bases convert red litmus paper blue, right? Fine. So when you dip red litmus paper, if it changes its color, that should be basic in nature. And if it does not change its color, then it should be acidic in nature, right? So let us see in which case it changes and in which case it does not change. Now coming to the substance that is taken in beaker A, it is calcium oxide. You know that metal oxides, when dissolved in water, forms bases, isn't it? So because of this reason, metal oxides are considered as bases. So when this is a base and if you dip red litmus paper, it should get converted into blue. So here you can see the conversion of red litmus paper blue in beaker A. Whereas in case of beaker B, you know that sulfur dioxide is a non-metal oxide and non-metal oxides when react with water forms acids, right? Because of this, non-metal oxides are considered as acidic, right? And when red litmus paper is dipped in acidic substance, it should not change its color. So there is no change in color in beaker B. The reason you know, because sulfur dioxide is acidic in nature, whereas here calcium oxide is basic in nature. That's why it converts red litmus paper, right? So these are the observations. Next question. So the question is, why is effervescence observed when active metals react with water? So you have learnt in the basics the metal reactivity series. Right? So in the metal reactivity series, the metals which are above hydrogen are active metals, right? And these active metals, when react with water, liberate hydrogen. And because of this liberation of hydrogen, you can observe effervescence, right? So that is what is the answer. Next question. Mention the reactions of water where metals such as potassium, calcium and zinc and non-metals such as carbon and chlorine. Metal oxides and non-metal oxides, right? Okay, so here are the reactions you can see. With metals, potassium, what is asked in the question? Potassium, calcium and zinc and non-metals such as carbon and chlorine. Now let us look at that. So here potassium reacts with cold water, it even reacts with moisture. I already told you that is water vapor. So when it reacts with this, it forms its corresponding base along with the liberation of hydrogen, right? And then this potassium floats on water in the form of silvery gray globules, okay, globules, and then reaction is vigorous and exothermic in nature, and it catches fire and burns with Liliac flame. Why does it catches fire? Is because of the enormous amount of the heat that is liberated during its reaction with water, and it being light in weight as it floats, it reacts with the atmospheric oxygen, and because of that heat, it catches fire. Right? Fine. So effervescence of hydrogen is observed, and water becomes alkaline. Why does it becomes alkaline? Because of the formation of cavenates. Right. And coming to calcium, calcium reacts with cold water. It cannot react with moisture. Right. And it also liberates hydrogen and forms calcium hydroxide. Right. And this converts this water into milky because of the formation of calcium hydroxide. This is sparingly soluble in water, because of which water gets converted into milky, right? And again it renders water alkaline because of its basic character, right? And it does not catch fire, fine? And then effervescence of hydrogen is observed. Okay. Why does it does not catch fire? Is it do not float, right? Calcium sinks into the water because its density is more than that of water. Fine. Now coming to the zinc. The reaction takes place when steam is passed over red hot zinc. It cannot react with cold water. Right. So reacting with moisture, cold water or hot water depends upon its reactivity. As you go down the series in the metal reactivity series, its reactivity decreases. Right. And zinc will be there below calcium, right? Fine. So zinc, when it reacts with steam, it forms its corresponding oxide along with the liberation of hydrogen. And this zinc oxide that is formed will be yellow color. But when it cools, it becomes colorless, right? So again, this change of zinc oxide from yellow color to colorless, right, is a physical change, because when hot it is yellow, when cold it is colorless, right? So, and then action of water on non-metals. Reaction with carbon. See, when superheated steam, this we have already discussed in the application-based questions. So when when steam is passed over red hot coal, we get carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas mixture, and this mixture, which is obtained in 1:1 ratio, is known as water gas. Right? And this is used as a good fuel and reducing agent. And then coming to the reaction with chlorine, even this is also discussed. Right? Chlorine, when reacts with water, it forms hydrochloric acid along with hypochlorous acid. And this hypochlorous acid, being unstable, again decomposes to form HCl and nascent oxygen. Right? And because of the formation of nascent oxygen, it is used as a disinfectant. Right? So On reacting with water, water is rendered acidic because of the formation of hydrochloric acid. And coming to reaction with metal oxides. Metal oxides when react with water forms their respective bases. Right. Whereas non-metal oxides when react with water forms their respective acids. So these are some of the examples of the metal oxides that are taken, and then their corresponding bases are also given in the reaction. Right. Similarly, some of the examples of the non-metal oxides, sulfur dioxide, phosphorus pentoxide, carbon dioxide, when reacts with water, what products are formed are also shown. Right. But generally, non-metal oxides reacts with water to form acids, whereas metal oxides reacts with water to form bases. Fine. Okay. Next question. So, what will you observe if a piece of sodium is kept in dry air? Justify your answer. The answer is no reaction. Why? Let us look into it. Sodium, you know, is a active metal, and it can even react with water vapor, isn't it? So, when it reacts with water vapor, it liberates hydrogen along with the enormous amount of the heat because of the reaction is exothermic in nature. Because of this heat liberated, it can burn in the presence of the oxygen and catches fire. Right. So this all can happen when there is moisture first. But what is given in the equation? If a piece of sodium is kept in dry air, so if it is a dry air, there is no question of moisture. And no question of moisture, no reaction, and no liberation of the heat. So when there is no liberation of the heat, no question of it catching fire in the presence of oxygen. Right. So there is no reaction. This is what is the justification of the answer. Next question. The reaction of sodium and potassium with humid air is violent and explosive. However, when these metals are kept in airtight container having silica gel, no reaction has been observed. Okay, give reason. So what is silica gel? Silica gel is a desiccant and can absorb moisture. Okay, absorbs moisture. Fine. Now, you know that sodium and potassium are highly active metals, and they can even react with the moisture and liberate enormous amount of the heat because the reaction is exothermic. Because of this heat energy, these metals can catch fire with air. Right. So if the air is humid air, the reaction is violent and explosive. But what is given in the equation? Metals are kept in airtight container having silica gel. In airtight container, the amount of the air available is limited, and even the moisture content will also be less. That moisture is absorbed already by silica gel. So when there is no moisture, there is no reaction. So that's what is given here. No reaction has been observed because there is no moisture as it is absorbed by silica gel. Clear? Next question. So here is a ninth question. So you can see A, B, C. Under A, identify corresponding metals and non-metals present in the base calcium hydroxide. So let us try to answer one by one. So what's the formula of calcium hydroxide? CaOH taken twice. So in this, the positive part is calcium. How do you write this? Ca2 plus and OH minus. So metal is calcium, whereas non-metals are oxygen and hydrogen. So what this is the answer. Corresponding metal is calcium. Okay, and the non-metals are oxygen and hydrogen. Now let us look at the B option. Why is phosphorus stored in water? Because phosphorus reacts very vigorously in the presence of air, but it does not react with water. Because of this reason, it is stored in water, right? And then write the reaction, and copper reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid. Okay. See, you have learnt in the metal reactivity series, so copper plus dilute HCl, no reaction. Why? In the metal reactivity series, only those metals which are above hydrogen, which we call it as active metals, can displace hydrogen from the dilute mineral acid, right? But whereas copper is less reactive than hydrogen, it is placed below hydrogen. So because of this reason, it cannot displace hydrogen from dilute mineral acids. So there is no reaction, right? So this is the answer for the ninth equation. Now let us look at the 10th question. A similar type question, why is sodium stored in kerosene? Give reason. Again, sodium is very reactive and reacts very vigorously with moisture. Right. So because of this reason, it is stored in kerosene. And the reaction with oxygen and moisture of sodium is very violent, and it releases enormous amount of heat energy because the reaction is exothermic in nature. Right? So to avoid all these, sodium is stored in kerosene. Right? Next question. You are given two boxes made with wood and metal respectively. Okay. Without seeing with naked eyes, how will you identify the box which is made with wood? Fine. It's a very simple question here. You know that metals exhibit sonorousness, whereas non-metals do not exhibit sonorous property. Right. So because of this, if we want to identify the boxes without seeing with the naked eyes, we can hit these boxes to a hard surface, and the one which makes a ringing sound will be the one that is made with the metal. Right. So this is how we can easily identify without looking at those boxes with the naked eye. By hitting it to the hard surface, and the one which makes the ringing sound will be the box that is made up of the metal, and the other one will be obviously the one which is made with wood. Right. So now B option. What is the nature of the solution formed when ash produced by burning magnesium ribbon is dissolved in water? Right. We have learnt about this reaction many times. Magnesium plus oxygen, and magnesium ribbon is burnt in the presence of oxygen. It forms magnesium oxide. Right. Now this magnesium oxide, when dissolved in water, what happens? This is a metal oxide, right? When dissolved in water, it forms magnesium hydroxide, which is a base. So obviously the solution will be basic in nature. Because it is forming a base, even this metal oxide will also be base. You know that generally metal oxides are basic in nature and non-metal oxides are acidic in nature. Right? So that's why the solution will be basic. Now, write the word equation for the formation of sulfurous acid from sulfur dioxide. Yes. Sulfur dioxide plus H2O gives rise to sulfurous acid, the formula of which is H2SO3. Right. So this is a balanced equation. Fine. So this is the answer for the third option. Now next question. Explain the reaction of active metals, sodium and potassium with oxygen and water. We have already discussed about this previously. See, sodium with oxygen and water, right? When it reacts with oxygen, it forms its corresponding oxide, which is Na2O, right? So Na plus 1, O2 minus, so we get Na2O, right? So 4, here we get 2, now this is balanced, fine. So we get its corresponding oxide. Similarly, potassium, when treated with oxygen, it also gives its corresponding oxide. Same here. Now if we talk about the reaction of these metals with water, they form their corresponding bases, hydroxides plus hydrogen, right? And then again potassium plus H2O gives rise to KOH plus H2. These are the reactions of these metals with oxygen and water, right? These are balanced equations. Now describe an activity. So we are asked to describe an activity to show that enormous amount of heat is generated in the above reaction. Okay, so let me take 1000 ml beaker and then fill water 500 ml, half filled. Okay, 500 ml of water, and then drop a small piece of either sodium or potassium. Let us take sodium, right? So this sodium should be dry enough. It needs to be dried with cotton or filter paper and then dropped into water. Right. So when it is dropped into water, you know that sodium is lighter than that of the water, right? Because of which it floats onto the surface, right? And the reaction of moisture and sodium is so vigorous that large amount of the heat is generated that you can see this, the sodium which is floating onto the surface catching fire in the presence of the air. right, and burning with an yellow flame. So how to know whether enormous amount of heat is generated or not in the above reaction is when you touch the beaker, you can feel the beaker so hot, indicating that heat is released during the reaction, right? So if you take potassium, then it burns with a lilac flame, right? If sodium, then it's yellow flame, fine. So this is all about the activity to show that enormous amount of heat is generated, right? Now next question. Name one non-metal which catches fire when exposed to air at room temperature. Okay, so non-metal is phosphorus. We have already learnt about this. That's why we are storing phosphorus in water, right? Now, if we drop a metallic coin and a piece of coal on the concrete floor, which one will produce sound and why? You know that concrete floor is hard, isn't it? It's a hard surface. So when metals and non-metals are hit to the hard surface, it is the metals which produces the ringing sound because they exhibit the property of sonorousness, right? So they are sonorous in nature, whereas non-metals do not exhibit that property. So because of this property, it is the metallic coin which produces the sound, but not the coal piece, because coal piece is form of the non-metal carbon, right? Fine. Now name the non-metal which is involved in manufacturing pencil lead. Yes, pencil lead is made up of graphite, which is the allotropic form of carbon. So name the non-metal. Answer is carbon. And which form of carbon? It is the graphite which is used in the pencil leads. Next question. Right. Give two examples of metals which are used in electrical transmission. Yes, even this we have discussed previously. Copper and aluminum. Right? Name the metal which is the best conductor of electricity. Answer is silver. Okay. Name any one non-metal which is hard in nature. Right. So it's a carbon. Carbon is very hard in nature. Right. Which form of carbon is hard? It's a diamond which is the hardest form of the carbon. Right. Now from the given reaction, what conclusion can you draw? So what are those reactions given? You can see zinc sulfate plus copper, no reaction, whereas copper sulfate plus iron forming the products iron sulfate plus copper. Now let us look at the first reaction. Here copper is less reactive when compared to that of the zinc. So it cannot displace zinc from its salt solution. That's why no reaction. Right. So it clearly indicates that copper is less reactive than that of zinc. So you have learned this in the metal reactivity series, right? Now coming to this one, iron is able to displace copper from its salt solution. So and can form iron sulfate plus copper, right? So clearly indicating that iron is more reactive than that of copper. That's why this reaction is possible, right? So if copper would have been more reactive than zinc, then the reaction would have been taken place, but that's not the case. Zinc is more reactive than that of the copper. So whenever in any displacement reaction, if a metal is unable to displace another metal from its salt solution, it is very clear that the metal which is added is less reactive than the another metal which is there in its salt solution. Fine. Fine. So these are the conclusions which we can draw. Fine. Next question. Ram has been collecting silver coins and copper coins along with stamps. One day he observed a black coating on the silver coins and green coating on the copper coins. Give reasons for the above changes and state the type of the chemical reactions, if any. So silver coins, whenever they are exposed to the atmospheric air containing traces of hydrogen sulfide, H2S, so silver can react with that, undergo displacement reaction, forming silver sulfide plus H2, right? So this silver sulfide is black in color and this gets deposited onto the silver. Because of this reason, you can see black coating onto the silver coins, right? Now if you talk about, so if you balance this, if you write here 2, it becomes balanced equation. 2 silver, hydrogen, yes. Now talking about green coating onto the copper coins, already discussed in the previous questions. So copper, when exposed to the atmospheric air, okay, containing moisture, copper reacts with this carbon dioxide in the presence of the moisture to form copper hydroxycarbonate. Copper hydroxycarbonate. Okay, or you can write this as Cu2OH2 CO3, copper hydroxycarbonate, which is green in color. This green colored copper hydroxycarbonate gets deposited onto the surface of the copper particles, because of which you can see the green patches, right? So these are the reactions that are taking place when silver and copper are exposed to the atmospheric air. This is a displacement reaction, whereas this is the combination reaction. You'll get a combined product. Next question. Boiled water and normal water are taken into separate airtight containers. When iron nails are placed in the two containers, explain in which container iron gets rusted and justify. Okay. What are the conditions for iron to get rusted? Iron gets rusted when it reacts with oxygen in the presence of moisture. Right. So both should be present for iron to get corroded and form iron oxide, which we call it as XH2O or 3H2O. This is rust. Okay. So reddish brown color flaky substance which gets deposited onto the iron where iron gets rusted. Right. So these are the conditions for iron to get rusted. Now let us look at the question. Boiled water and normal water are taken in two separate airtight containers. Airtight containers. So there is no presence of air there. And here in the boiled water, when water is boiled, what happens is all the dissolved gases gets expelled out, doesn't it? So even if any dissolved oxygen is there, dissolved oxygen, dissolved carbon dioxide, all gets expelled out. So when you place iron into water, no doubt moisture is there, but there is no oxygen, isn't it? Because boiled water is placed in the airtight container and already the dissolved oxygen got expelled out. So as this condition is not satisfied, iron cannot get rusted. But in case of normal water, though it is placed in the airtight container, but water contains dissolved oxygen. So iron with the dissolved oxygen and the moisture gets corroded and forms rust. Right? So in normal water, the iron nails which are placed in the normal water gets rusted, while the one which are placed in the boiled water do not get rusted because of the lack of dissolved oxygen. Right? So this is the justification. Next question. What are metals which can be cut with a knife? Yes, sodium and potassium. Why? Because they are so soft in nature that they can be cut with the help of knife. Right? Next question. What do you observe when red litmus paper is introduced into the aqueous solution of calcium oxide? Justify your observation. Similar type of question we have already seen in the application based. Okay. See, calcium oxide, aqueous solution of calcium oxide. What's the meaning of aqueous solution? The solution of this substance in water. So when this is added with water, you can see the formation of calcium hydroxide. Right? So this is basic in nature. So the solution will be basic. So when you dip a red litmus paper, what should happen is red litmus paper gets converted to blue because bases convert red litmus blue. So you can see the red litmus paper converting blue when you dip it in the aqueous solution of calcium oxide. The reason is the solution is basic in nature and bases convert red litmus paper blue. Next question. Immersion rods for heating water are made up of metallic substances. Give reason. Why pickles cannot be stored in aluminium utensils? Right. Immersion rods for heating water are made up of metallic substances because metallic substances are good electrical and thermal conductors. Electrical and thermal conductors. Because of these properties, metallic substances are used as immersion rods for heating water. Right. Then why pickles cannot be stored in aluminium utensils? Right. See, pickles contains additives which are acidic in nature, which reacts with aluminium and forms the products that can spoil the pickle. So to avoid this, pickles are not stored in aluminium utensils. Right. So this is the answer for this B option. This is all about your practice-based questions. Hope it's clear and you would have enjoyed even the questions. Thank you.